And joining us today, our special panel, we have Andrew Whitehead, author and senior journalist. We have Professor Makarand Paranjpe. We have Walter Anderson and Lord Meghnad Desai. Thank you all for joining us once again here. We're looking at these numbers and we're looking at the vast cross-section of Indians who voted for Narendra Modi, from women to rural voters, urban voters, people across castes, people across religions, across states. So I want to say, should we revise that cover of the Time magazine from divider-in-chief to unifier-in-chief? He's brought them all together.
Well, it wasn't my Time cover, I have to say, divider-in-chief. And I know it rankles with people here. And Narendra Modi's achievement looks even more emphatic and impressive the day after than it did on results day. The figures that you gave, the BJP's share of the national vote, up from 31% to almost 39%. In the seats that it contested, it's 46%. In constituencies where it was a head-to-head between Congress and the BJP won in 93% of those constituencies. They saw off the Mahagathbandhan, they sustained their strength across the Hindi belt, and they made a major breakthrough in West Bengal, taking 40% of the popular vote in that state. So, I mean, there are exceptions, but Narendra Modi has demonstrated his popularity across the nation, across caste barriers, across gender barriers, across barriers of religion. I'm less convinced.
Okay, let's take that with Professor Paranjpe. Unifier-in-chief now?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I wrote about this after the Time magazine cover story. I wrote a rebuttal, and I said precisely this, that if anything, he's unifier-in-chief, because we've moved from the divide et impera narrative of the British Empire, which the Congress inherited, to this grand national narrative, onward India, you know, which is a narrative which is inclusive, as you said, across caste lines, beyond the caste calculus, beyond community, the gender bias, north-south divide. Though I must say that the BJP hasn't done that well in the south of the Vindhyas, but Karnataka is an exception. And they've already got an eastern corridor all the way to Arunachal Pradesh. So I think this is a decisive mandate, and all these labels, you know, Hindu fascists or, you know, intolerance debate, award wapsi, all these labels that were attempted to be foisted on both Modi and BJP have now been comprehensively defeated.
What's your take on how colossal this win has been, and how across sections people have voted for Narendra Modi? Does he still look to you like a divisive figure, or somebody who's brought all these? He's transcended all the traditional barriers of Indian politics.
You're right, and among the groups that he got, which was somewhat surprising, is the youth vote. He got that as well, beside all the other groups that you mentioned. So there's something, his charisma and trust in him and the future, that obviously, you know, has an enormous impact on many Indians. And even in the South, the BJP has established a footprint in the South, which it didn't have before. If you look at the statistics in the 3 states of the South, where it still is relatively weak, but it's considerably more than in the past, and they actually have won some seats in the South they didn't have in the past. And as I mentioned, that's the place to watch, because in fact there is a structure. The RSS has a structure in the South, which they can use for the BJP as it grows. They did that in West Bengal.
40% of the vote share.
Yes, but it was the building of that was done by an RSS Pracharak, using the RSS network to help them on that. And the same thing was in Orissa and the Northeast. I think you're going to see that in the South as well. Now, much, of course, will depend on how successful the Prime Minister is in his policy, you know, perspectives, particularly job creation. And in the South, there is a particular problem on lack of jobs and how well he does in doing that. And I know we may get to the policy issue, but I think this is where his focus is going to be next, is on policies, particularly on major policies, on economics, because there is a problem.
Right. We'll come to the policies, but you also mentioned the youth vote. So if you look at the vote share, it makes for a very interesting study. The Congress's vote share from 19.3% to 19%. They more or less kept it. The Samajwadi Party has kept its vote share. The Bahujan Samaj Party has kept its vote share. But the 10 crore new voters have all gone to Narendra Modi, which is why his share has increased from a 31 to a 39%.
You know, I think everybody is missing out that there has been an enormous change in India, partly because mobile telephony and sort of internet and all that. You know, even in the rural areas, people are no longer isolated or unaware of what is going on. They can connect quickly. They can see things on television. They can buy things, and so that kind of sort of melting pot kind of thing. So Narendra Modi, I would say, is the first all-India Prime Minister. That would be my guess. He has reached every part of India that is possible to reach, and compared to, say, Jawaharlal Nehru or Indira Gandhi, I mean, there's only two other comparisons. And he represents a maturity about his attitude. I thought his speech yesterday was fantastic, because as he spoke without any notes, very extempore, but it is a very thoughtfully crafted speech. He knew what people were worried about. And he was saying, listen, don't worry, the Constitution is all right. You know, I will abide by the Constitution. I'm not going to take, there's no vendetta. I forget what was said about me. Badniyat se kuch nahi karenge.
So in the first time he came to power, he said, I am everybody's Prime Minister.
Yeah.
I am Prime Minister of those who voted for me and for those who did not vote for me. And he sought to give out the same message, and he's added to his Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. Now he also says Sabka Vishwas. So I think he's also coming from there, saying that...
Yeah. But you know, the Sabka Vikas, a lot of people were saying during the election campaign, oh, where is Sabka Vikas? What they did not notice, that down below in the grassroots, so the effect of Sabka Vikas was felt, which is why women voted for him, why in the rural areas BJP got vote, because they had seen the benefit of electrification and toilets and all those things. And I think the analysis was very superficial. They went on talking about demonetization or GST, which, you know, I think their sort of front room business. At the back of the house are the real issues, and he knows the real issues are at the back of the house. Right. And you have to look after that.
You know, I'm talking to someone who said that the Modi wave in 2014 began from urban India, the aspirational middle class, to rural India. And over the last 5 years, he's captured the vote share, the mind space, the confidence of rural India as well.
I think a reason for that is an issue we really haven't addressed, and that's information technology and social media, which has had an enormous expansion in India over the last 5 to 10 years. I think that's had an effect. You now have people out in the smallest, most remote village who can now look at events that are happening in India as a whole and internationally. And I think that's happening. And I think what you see in this election is one of the effects of the spread of information technology in India, and which is, I think, a really amazing development. And what that does, it undermines the power of traditional institutions, like in the caste structure. The traditional institutions no longer are the major medium of transmitting information. Information technology is.
Right. So the images that we saw today, after that campaign, a very bitter campaign, the first two leaders he chose to go and see were Murli Manohar Joshi and L.K. Advani, people who nurtured him as a political leader, who helped him grow, and then were unceremoniously, some say, taken out of the party. Do you believe that this is the beginning of the process of rapprochement from Narendra Modi?
I think it was an important signal within the party to pay respect to the elder statesmen of the party, and Murli Manohar Joshi and L.K. Advani are the two elder statesmen of the party. They're both, for different reasons, bruised. I suspect Murli Manohar Joshi is still sporting those bruises, but they're gracious enough to recognise Modi's success, and Modi and Amit Shah are gracious enough to recognise what Advani and Joshi did in terms of developing the BJP from a very, very low base. But I think it was an important symbol above all for the party. And also it's trying to say, it's not only acknowledging the elder statesman, it's a sign that he's going to bring the party together as much as he possibly can.
Right. They say you show humility in victory and grace in defeat. Is Narendra Modi, according to you, showing the way to his party leaders and his followers that the election is over and now we need to take everyone together and work?
Absolutely. I think he's building a grand consensus, a grand national consensus by being inclusive. But I think what's really important to note, it's not that we haven't had towering leaders in the past whose appeal extended across all boundaries. You rightly said Jawaharlal Nehru, Indira Gandhi, and also Rajiv Gandhi, who was popular in the south as well as the north and in the east and the west. But I think what is really groundbreaking is that the narrative, which propelled these leaders to power is totally different. We've made a decisive break with that Nehruvian consensus to a completely different narrative. And today, the RSS top brass has signaled that by saying that we have a new narrative in place, and for the first time, India has voted or backed this new narrative. I think this is something to note. And this is a decisive break with the past, because even with, with Vajpayee's NDA won, there was still an attempt to extend that Nehruvian consensus a little bit. And in 2004, people said it's an experiment. We don't know if Hindutva will succeed. But now we know that a lot of Indians have lined up behind Hindutva. And this also means Muslims, though people are saying otherwise. And it'll only unfold in the days to come. I think the party is going to reach out to the Muslims, and you will see a Muslim policy being developed from the RSS and the BJP. This is my hunch.
Well, if I can,
sure.
I know what you say. I hope you're right. But Muslims make up 1/7 of the population of this country. If they were going to be proportionate within the ranks of the BJP parliamentary party, there would be more than 40 Muslim BJP MPs in the new Lok Sabha. As far as I'm aware, there aren't any at all, and that's quite striking.
So, I also have something to say to that. So
I just want to respond very briefly. We can't play this game anymore, that only Muslims can represent Muslim interests, only, Dalits can represent Dalit interests.
But in a representational democracy, you would
Yes.
expect everybody to be there.
Well, that's why the separate electorates of Jinnah was voted out by the Congress. We can't play
for
that
most
game.
political parties, that tokenism is gone. So
Yes.
I have issues with reservation when you say that women representatives can best represent women's cause. I think winnability is the new criterion for most parties and leaders to be fielded.
The overall picture tells a story.
It does.
No, listen, I thank you for saying that, because we never say there are not enough women who represent women, but we always say. But looking at the numbers of Muslim MPs in Lok Sabha, which is now 25, and it more or less has been that kind of thing. Occasionally it has gone up in the 1980s, but it's sort of back to where it was in the 1950s and 1960s. So, it's partly because other parties have been frightened of selecting Muslim candidates. Congress, for example, is completely frightened of. And so, and BJP always puts up Mukhtar Abbas Naqvi whenever they have a kind of spokesperson. So I agree with as Walter said, they will develop a Muslim policy. Because RSS has also got a sort of thesis on, we're all Hindus and with different religions. They are not like the Savarkar. They don't have the Hindutva notion. They say we're all Hindus, we're all territorial Hindus, and our religions are different. So that is, and another thing is that the Nehruvian vision was top down. This is very much working in grassroots.
Right.
It reflects what grassroots believe in.
Exactly.
I want to bring in more figures here.